answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Do you believe that Iran has moved nuclear centrifuges into Pickaxe Mountain? And when you say we're not done yet, what is left to finish?
Well, I think that they may have. We don't have it on record. We follow the material. That's where the action is. And we'll be hitting that area probably pretty soon. And there's not a thing they can do about it. Normally I wouldn't say that. If I thought they could do something about it, I would never say that. But we'll be hitting that area pretty soon, and very heavily.
Now, this is what we believe what's happening here in Pickaxe, underground nuclear tunnel complex near the Natanz site, as I just mentioned. And why would you be concerned about this? Well, the Israelis just this week said this might be the area where the Iranians are storing or have moved their centrifuges. And what could you do with that? You could use those centrifuges to rebuild your nuclear program, and that is the worry. Why it's difficult to hit? That's a mountain. It's about 5,000 feet high and about 300 to 450 feet underground is where the centrifuges may be located. So what do? Do you hit it? And if so, can you be successful? This is tough mountain built of granite.
And then the key is, will that be sufficient enough to stop Iran? We have, as you heard in that Fox report, the realism that Pickaxe Mountain, 300 to 500 feet under it, where they have their centrifuges now placed, according to Israeli and other intel sources. In the 5,000 top of that mountain range, you've got to get down and into the 300 to 400 feet lower to be effective. Unless would ground troops be used? Now, again, I'm opposed to using U.S. forces, U.S. boots on the ground. This is where the Gulf allies should step in. And they've been targeted by Iran. They've been taking hits from Iran. So they might be more than willing to do so, and apparently indicating they will, but that's yet to be determined. Welcome to hour number one, Larry Connors USA, July 23, 2026. Reminding you when we're on the air, we are streaming video. You can watch the program. You go to NewsTalkSTL Rumble, Facebook or Twitter, Larry Connors USA Rumble or Facebook. And everything goes up as a podcast later. On NewsTalkSTL, LarryConnorsUSA.com, which, by the way, is where you can subscribe, and we will dump each program into your mailbox. We need minimum information, and we do not sell your information. But you have it in your mailbox every day. It's also available at Larry Connors USA Facebook. All the podcasts on any podcast outlet, simply search Larry Connors USA. And with Larry Connors USA, you are going to get news, analysis, commentary, and education. Education. Every hour you leave with more information than you began. Just coming up in this segment, you're going to hear an example of your education. In our next hour, there is no, I've got a guess that says there is no America first with Mexico last. What's the story there? That'll be coming up in our next hour. And later in this hour, John Daniel Davidson, senior editor of The Federalist, says basically our transhumanist sci-fi human is here. Cloning underway. We will get into that with John Daniel Davidson in this hour. And before we wrap up this hour, my days as a bull rider, not on the PBR circuit, but a Brahma bull doesn't know it's not on the PBR circuit. So some personal stories here on bull riding, and also the story of the most historic bull ever ridden, or not, bushwhacker. That's still to come. And my battle to ride a mechanical bull. It's all part of the story behind the story. Now back to the more serious issue, dealing with Iran. Brian Hook is a former U.S. Special Representative to Iran, and his thought on attacking Pickaxe Mountain.
Does have to hit Pickaxe Mountain because Iran has learned over the earlier strikes on the nuclear facilities that anything above ground is at risk of being destroyed. And so Iran has always been thinking many steps ahead about putting a nuclear facility so deep that that no bombs could penetrate it. But that doesn't mean that you have to get to the very bottom to neuter this facility. There's a lot of stuff above ground that you can hit and still accomplish your objective of denying Iran the ability to put its nuclear facility underground.
And you have to keep in mind the battle continues. And in fact, Yemen's Iran-backed Houthi rebels claiming dual attacks on Saudi oil tankers and the Red Sea early this morning, as the U.S. conducted a 12th straight night of strikes against Iran infrastructure, military and civil. President Trump had said yesterday, you hit any tanker, you will get fire back, and we'll be going after civilian infrastructure, bridges, roads, power plants. And that is what we're doing at this point. In the meantime, we also have stories that what are we going to be doing reference the agreement with the civil nuclear deal, the 123 agreement with Saudi Arabia. I've been going after that in today's commentary. I have a lot of questions, concerns, because my main issue is in that part of the region of the world, and Saudi Arabia has been our friend, ally for 90 plus years. But in that part of the world, that 90 years equals 90 seconds. And your friend today could well be your enemy tomorrow. President Trump re-clarifying today that the civil nuclear deal, there will be no enrichment of material between the U.S. and Saudi Arabia, pertains only to non-military use. And of course, that's the reason we're fighting in Iran, to stop Iran from building up nuclear weapons. And said it's not going to happen unless they sign off on the successful Abraham Accords. So there's still some pieces to be signed off and played out. But again, back to the reality of right now, nukes possibly being constructed inside Iran, inside Pickaxe Mountain. And the question I raised a moment ago goes right back now to Brian Hook, former U.S. Special Rep to Iran. Will we need boots on the ground?
I think Pickaxe can be done in terms of rendering it inoperable. Does that mean forever? Probably not. But there's a lot that you can do to set back the program. And President Trump has set back Iran's nuclear program enormously. And our military has achieved enormous gains against Iran's nuclear program. But they've been preparing for this fight for almost 20 years. And they have a perfect history of hiding their nuclear program. And Pickaxe is central to their strategy. And so it's not something that the president can ignore. I think even with from an aerial standpoint, you can do a lot to set back Iran's nuclear program at Pickaxe.
Now, there's another issue on the table, and it's going to be prevalent not only as expressed by Brian Hook, but a counter statement from a guest, or rather from a speaker coming up before we wrap up this segment, and that is the Gulf allies. They are allies with us right now, and what we're doing, and they're being targeted by Iran, and they've been firing back into Iran. But could there be a break point? Once again, Brian Hook.
Right. You have a lot of Gulf countries that are very nervous about Iran counterattacking and taking out energy facilities all across the Gulf. And if that were to happen, you could see a very sharp elevation in energy prices and in gas prices. And so I think you have a lot of very nervous Gulf allies about Iran striking back. They've already shown a willingness and a capability to hit energy facilities around the Gulf, but they've held back a lot. And so I think our allies are very nervous, and that's why they're trying to negotiate some sort of diplomatic path. You heard Secretary Rubio talk about the door to diplomacy is open, and that's exactly the right position, while the president answers every Iranian military provocation with a response on our side. I think the long-term path is a dual strategy of answering Iran militarily while running the economic blockade, the naval blockade that he's doing. The Iranian economy is very fragile. And the president was right to start the maximum economic pressure campaign in his first administration. He's got 2.5 years left to let this run. And I think because Iran is this very fragile Marxist economy, that's its biggest vulnerability. That's its weakness. And you have to focus on that while you're also answering them militarily when they hit ships and hit them.
And so we're keeping negotiations open. But Trump made it very clear. Iran's not really interested in any talks. They just want delay tactics and delay tactics. That's the bottom line.
This is with this skirmish we have with the Islamic Republic of Iran, and I call it that because, let me tell you, they're getting hit so hard, and they want to make a deal. But I say they're not ready to make a deal, because every time they make a deal, they want to change it and everything. They're not ready. They'll be ready very soon.
Well, that's Trump's prediction. There is a contrarian view on Trump and the success in hammering, quote, winning in Iran right now. Some might say this is not just a contrarian view, it is a legitimate view. We're talking about Chicago University professor Robert Papp. This was him 2 months ago.
This is the week that the United States has truly lost control of the Iran war. This has all happened. It's been building, and I've been talking about this, but you can now see it this week. Iran is negotiating without the United States. So Iran's going to Pakistan, it's going to Russia, it's about to go to Oman, but it's not about meeting with the United States. Our allies, at least maybe our former allies, say the German leader, is publicly saying that America is humiliated on the world stage. Just think about that for a moment. And the global system, the region and the global system is essentially moving on without the United States.
Now, again, that was 2 months ago. We have seen a lot of success since then, but some of that thought process expressed by Robert Papp, professor, University of Chicago, it still exists among, quote, allies, and we're not even talking about in the Gulf region. He mentioned Germany. And, of course, we also have the issue to deal with in our own backyard, inside our country, as we pointed out yesterday. Some of our greatest enemies against what we're trying to do with Iran are in our nation. Now, I'm not calling Robert Papp an enemy, but I'll point this out to you. The House today passed a Democratic-backed war powers resolution to limit President Trump's military action in Iran. The lower chamber voted 214 to 208 to pass that resolution, sponsored by Washington Congresswoman Jayapal. And 4 Republicans joined all the Democrats in that measure. The usual suspects here for you. Michigan Congressman Barrett, Ohio Congressman Davidson, Kentucky Congressman Massey, Pennsylvania Congressman Fitzpatrick. So even inside our own country, we have those still fighting against what Trump says he needs to do to move forward and put an end to this once and for all. But now going back to Robert Papp and his statement from 2 months ago that it was a bad thing to get involved in and we're losing allies and they're going to turn on us. I do go back to my statement earlier. Your enemy, or rather your friend today, could well be your enemy tomorrow. Robert Papp's most recently view stated this way.
Iran is stronger today than it was before the war started. And this is literally the nightmare scenario that we've been worrying about. And the reason you're having me here is because in the next few months, the world economic crisis is going to grow.
And it does appear that you've been largely correct about what you said would happen.
It's because I've been modeling the bombing of Iran 20 years, and I've advised every White House from 2001 to 2024 on different issues related to conflict. And right now, we're coming into the stage 3 prediction. We're like on the Titanic, and we're about to hit the iceberg. And when the iceberg hits, there's not enough lifeboats for everybody. So we are knocking on the door of the world literally running out of oil. And then on top of that, Stephen, we have another set of problems. For example, Iran is attacking our base in Jordan, and we're in our 9th day of bombing in a row. And the scale of eliminating the drone and missile threat is much bigger than people realize because they hide those drones everywhere.
So how real is the risk that the US will do some kind of limited ground operation with boots on the ground in Iran?
It's bordering on 70% now, probably by the end of this week. But I'm concerned about terrorist attack because controlling pieces of homeland territory is the biggest risk factor for suicide terrorism. So the choice is, do we have a global economic crisis, possibly recession, possibly worse, or do we let Iran control the Strait of Hormuz?
Now, that is a key point. Obviously, we cannot allow Iran to control the Strait of Hormuz. And in the meantime, the Houthi rebels, as I mentioned, they're now firing at ships at another choke point. They're around the edge of Yemen, Red Sea, going into the Gulf of Aden, and they're beginning to fire. And some of those ships trying to come through the Red Sea, they've been on the southern side of the Strait of Hormuz or have passed through it. They're now turning back because of the Houthi rebels escalating their attacks. I told you earlier about how the House had passed a Democrat War Powers resolution. That's in the House. In the meantime, Senate Republicans are growing increasingly concerned after what they say, and this is a quote from, I believe this is The Hill. They say there is a lack of a clear plan to end the military conflict with Iran. And they warn that rising U.S. casualties and stubbornly high gas prices are going to hurt the party in the midterm election. That is a political ploy play that it obviously works to the advantage of Iran and those against Trump. Make no mistake about it. I'm looking at the latest report from CNN, basing on oil prices, saying oil tops $100 as a Red Sea attack significantly escalates the conflict. That is a reference again to the Houthi rebels attacking ships trying to leave the Red Sea, go into the Gulf of Eden, I should say. Now, again, Trump has been asking for more money. Hegseth asked Congress for that the other day. Senate Republicans were not totally sold on what he said. House Republicans having to deal with a defeat and another resolution passed to control Trump. We've got a long ways to go with this thing. Coming up, I'd mentioned earlier the guest for today in this first hour, John Daniel Davidson, senior editor at The Federalist. And he says basically the sci-fi view of a transmachine, transhumanist human is already here. He will explain exactly how, and it includes cloning. And the story behind the story. My days as a bull rider and the most famous bull in PBR history. Lock and load. Ready on the right.
You are listening to Larry Connors, USA.
Another day must be another roofer in town. And John Beal and I were talking. He said, you know, every time you turn around, there's a new roofing company. Many of them have no idea what they're doing. And the statistics show that many will be out of business within 2 to 5 years. Who are you going to call to help you then? You need to remember only one name, John Beal. John Beal Roofing. You have a problem, he can take care of it. And we'll be here for you. John Beal Roofing. Call 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF. Spring weather has everyone sneezing, even inside their home or building. Instead of saying Gesundheit, call Wellington Environmental to perform air tests to determine if mold levels are too high. Gesundheit is the same as saying bless you after someone sneezes, the German word meaning wishing you good health. Wellington Environmental can perform air testing that is simple, fast, and can identify issues keeping you from having good health. Wellington does the same for hospitals and nursing homes for indoor concerns. Give them a call. It's simple. 314-644-4930. 644-4930. Tell Cindy, I need air sampling. They've seen it all. They can help you. Next time you hear Gesundheit, think Wellington. Wellington Environmental. Be well with Wellington. Every summer, homeowners make plans: a new grill, a backyard project, a family vacation. But what about the upgrades you could enjoy every single day? Your windows drafty, difficult to open? Your patio entry door has seen better days? Now's the time to make a change. Renewal by Andersen makes replacing windows and doors simple. Beautifully crafted products, professional installation. And right now, save big. Get $1,000 off your patio or entry door and take $400 off each replacement window. And if you schedule your appointment before July 12, get an additional $250 off your entire purchase. Call 877-WINDOWS or visit renewalbyanderson.com. 877-WINDOWS or visit renewalbyanderson.com. Renewal by Andersen. Superior products, exceptional service. It's that time of season when families, businesses are moving. For local or long distance, I endorse McGuire Moving. Get a date set soon before the schedules are booked. 314-241-0600. 241-0600. McGuire is constantly giving back to our veterans, such as support dogs for our brave. So with McGuire, you're getting excellent service and helping our vets. McGuireMoving.com.
This is News Talk STL.
Jimmy's in the back with a pocket of high. If you listen close, you can hear him cry. Oh, Lord, heaven knows we belong way down below. Sing it. Oh, Lord, heaven knows we belong way down below. Way down below, way down below.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Welcome back. My guest is senior editor at The Federalist, author of the book Pagan America, The Decline of Christianity and the Dark Age to Come. And part of today's article he did for The Federalist involves some of the words from that very book. John Daniel Davidson, glad to have you on board, sir.
Hey, thanks for having me, Larry.
You wrote a piece here, and I'm going to read the title and let you take it for a few moments. Our transhumanist sci-fi future has arrived, but you're not going to like it.
Yeah, this was about a item that was on X the other day. Earlier this week, a guy named Brian Johnson, who's a Silicon Valley tycoon who made millions developing AI applications for medical technology. He has a project called Project Blueprint, I believe, and the point of it is to live forever. He thinks he can reverse the aging process using medical technology, and he's using himself as the test case. And so he's very publicly documenting his efforts to reverse aging and achieve immortality. Maybe that sounds crazy, but that's sort of normal among these transhumanist Silicon Valley types. And he announced yesterday that he has successfully cloned himself. He's cloned what he calls a baby Brian that he's going to use to harvest blood and stem cells and potentially grow replacement organs. And so this raises a terrifying prospect for the future of medical technology and AI.
And of course, you point out he does not have, and nor does he claim, a full-grown body double, but he does have in a petri dish, he says, basically, as you said, a baby Brian from which he can harvest organs to continue life forever and ever, if he's right.
Yeah, and he even said in his announcements, he said, this is just in a petri dish for now. So obviously the aim here is to utilize, the technology he's using is about 20 years old, but previously it was used to treat just specific diseases. It's a process of taking blood cells and then these different techniques to make them into stem cells. Now he's doing that with his own cells with the hope that he can grow organs that he can use as replacement organs, that he can replace his blood with new, younger blood, that he can produce stem cell therapies from his own clone and inject them into his body and prolong his life. That's the kind of dystopian sci-fi project that is going to become increasingly common among these people.
Now, you point out in your book, you've written about it in Pagan America, that some years ago Time magazine featured him in a puff profile. And basically, you point out in Pagan America, it's an example how the transhumanist movement is a form of neo-paganism that will treat AI like a new force of deity.
That's right. I talked about Brian Johnson in my book because he's an example of somebody who's treating AI like a god or a deity. He has essentially given over his whole life to these AI algorithms. They dictate to him what he is to eat, when he is to sleep, where he is to go, what he is to do. Every second of his day is determined by this AI. These AI algorithms that he's using to prolong his life. And so the bargain here is a very old one for students of history and anybody who knows anything about how the pagan world worked. The deal was, in exchange for fealty and sacrifice to a pagan deity, you were given power, either some kind of power, long life, power over nature, power over your enemies. That's the bargain. You get something, and all of these systems include some form of human sacrifice, and human sacrifice always involves cannibalism. Now, I think it's important to note that in that kind of profile, Brian Johnson said that initially when he started this program, he was injecting himself with blood plasma from his 18-year-old son in hopes that it would reverse his own aging. Now, that is a very ancient practice coming back to us in a modern guise of technology.
Now, being the devil's advocate for a moment, and this could be as literal as you want, what's wrong with wanting to prolong your life and live longer, and if you can do it using your own cells as opposed to harvesting from someone else?
There's nothing wrong with wanting to be healthy and to live a full and complete life. But of course, people like Brian Johnson need to understand that if they want to live forever, all they have to do is become a Christian.
Yes. Yes.
Christ said that he promised the resurrection of the body and life everlasting. And so we have that as Christians. The desire to prolong one's life in a physical, unresurrected form is a diabolical ambition that has been part of every human society since the beginning of time. It's the Faustian bargain, and we have a lot of literature and mythology to warn us against the dangers of that. Unfortunately, I think the Silicon Valley tech elites are maybe not aware of that, or they don't think it applies to them because they think their technology has overcome these perennial issues.
Well, we have gone through various sci-fi stories of Frankenstein or taking a head from someone else and putting it on your body so you can continue that way. I mean, it's been all over the chart, but it's been looked at as sci-fi, not possible, not going to happen, and no one would want to do it. But the corner is turned.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, one of the things about technology, and I mentioned this in my piece, we have to understand that technology kind of has a life of its own. Everything that can be done with technology will be done with technology. So, the sci-fi future is not just a cure for cancer and renewable clean energy. It's also pretty horrifying things like animal-human chimeras, artificial wombs, and clones that are developed for the purpose of harvesting body parts and organs and blood. That's a dark vision of the future, but unfortunately, these tech oligarchs in Silicon Valley and elsewhere are barreling us forward toward it.
And then on the other side, you have various countries, most recently Spain, the Netherlands as well, and Canada, pushing and legalizing euthanasia.
That's right. Euthanasia is another example of the pagan mindset coming back into the modern world under a new guise. Under the moniker of healthcare, which is what Brian Johnson calls this clone, right? Healthcare. They call abortion healthcare. They call euthanasia healthcare.
Right.
They call clone harvesting health. Everything's healthcare, but it's actually very diabolical, very wicked, and we need to call it out for what it is.
Now, is there a line though where it is legitimate and worthwhile and genuine and is not anti-God, anti-Christ, although I certainly agree with you if you want life everlasting, accept Jesus into your heart. But is there a line there where it's on the good side, but then you cross one line where it turns to the other side.
Yeah, I think there's always a line, and this is why it's important for religious leaders and ethicists to pay attention to technology and to respond to it when it comes up. This is something the Catholic Church has done very well over the years as new technologies come online, to be able to sort of assess them in light of eternal, unchanging truths about the human condition, about God and man, and about the moral universe that we inhabit, to be able to give guidance so that we're not bowled over by every new technology and think, oh, well, this technology can do some good. Well, yes, maybe it can do some good, but at what cost? And that's the question we have to ask about all these things.
But it is different than harvesting from aborted fetuses and umbilical cords and so forth. So is that a plus or minus?
Oh, you mean harvesting one's own stem cells?
Right.
Yeah, I think this technology may have an application in a certain case when someone has a disease that they need to be cured, and they're able to take some of their own blood and do this process to it to make it into stem cells and then create a therapy that treats that disease. The problem here is that Brian Johnson and the people who want to live forever, they're not treating a disease. There's nothing wrong with them. There's no malady to be cured. What they're trying to treat is their own mortality. And that is a totally different goal, a totally different aim and ambition than trying to treat a specific disease or sickness to restore health. That's not restoring health.
And how different is that from the ancient process of bloodletting to make yourself better?
Well, I mean, the bloodletting, the idea that was that you were also treating a disease. I think it's much more akin to the ancient process of sacrificing a victim, consuming their blood in exchange for prolonged or eternal life. In this case, what Brian Johnson and these other people are contemplating is growing human beings, growing human organs and parts, creating people and destroying them. It's we have all kinds of technologies that cheapen human life, that create people and create human beings, bring them into the world for the purpose of destruction. That's what IVF is. Let's be honest about it.
Yeah.
And this is a form of that we need to not embrace uncritically, that we need to weigh the costs, think very carefully about it, and realize that mortality is not a sickness to be cured through technology.
All right, John Daniel, I'll always appreciate you joining us. A fascinating discussion for our audience. Would like to have you back on a future subject, sir.
Hey, thanks, Larry. Always appreciate talking to you.
You bet. John Daniel Davidson, senior editor of The Federalist. The article, Our Transhumanist Sci-Fi Future, has arrived. And again, check out his book, Pagan America. Pagan America. Coming up, my days as a bull rider and the meanest, wickedest bull on earth, Bushwhacker.
You can connect with Larry on Twitter at Larry Connors USA.
I want to share something with you. Cooking a pizza using coal creates an amazing pizza. Only one place to get it, Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in Chesterfield. Of course, they offer a wide variety of pasta, but you just visit the website NapoliSTL.com, dine in or take out, and get ready for patio season. Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in Chesterfield Valley. Try it. You can thank me later. So many times, Vincent's Jewelers has helped me surprise someone special. Vincent's, locally owned, can do the same for you, and you don't have to break the bank to get something really nice, maybe even customized. The smile you're going to get back from that special someone, priceless. Check VincentsJewelers.com every day because new items are arriving and there are special deals. Vincent's, my only jeweler. VincentsJewelers.com. VincentsJewelers.com. Every summer, homeowners make plans: a new grill, a backyard project, a family vacation. But what about the upgrades you could enjoy every single day? Your windows drafty, difficult to open? Your patio entry door has seen better days? Now's the time to make a change. Renewal by Anderson makes replacing windows and doors simple. Beautifully crafted products, professional installation. And right now, save big. Get $1,000 off your patio or entry door and take $400 off each replacement window. And if you schedule your appointment before July 12, get an additional $250 off your entire purchase. Call 877-WINDOWS or visit renewalbyanderson.com. 877-WINDOWS or visit renewalbyanderson.com. Renewal by Anderson. Superior products, exceptional service. When insurance companies know you're represented by Under Law, they know Under is not going to let you be pushed around. Their reputation is built on years of courtroom battles. If you suffer an injury or damage to your property, serve the insurance company notice. You have Under Law on your side. A St. Louis firm you can trust to protect you at every term. Don't settle for less. You want to win? Believe me, Under wins. Under, O-N-D-R, underlaw.com.
This is News Talk STL.
Well, I walk into the room, passing out $100 bills, and it kills and it thrills like the horns on my Silverado grill. And I buy the bar a double round of Crown, and everybody's getting down in this town. Ain't never gonna be the same. 'Cause I saddle up my horse and I ride into the city. I make a lot of noise 'cause the girls, they are so pretty. Riding up and down Broadway on my old stud Leroy, and the girls say, save a horse, ride a cowboy. Everybody says, save a horse, ride a cowboy.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Now, Larry Connors with the story behind the story.
Blake Sharp, you can see him right there. Keeping continues to have Rockville's number, and that's his second score of the weekend, Coop. That's very important.
Very important. I don't think he's going to go to the #1 spot, but he's going to move in that top 5 with this ride here. Rockville had a good day. Dan Keeping matched it.
It's probably going to take 2 to bring you back to the championship round. Coop, 90 on the nose.
Really good ride. And hey, what a way to start us off for our first ride here in Albuquerque. Just what you'd expect.
His second 90-plus point score of the season could not have come at a better time after that long buck-off streak. He has now ridden 2 good ones in a row.
Well, that is part of the action from the PBR, the Bull Riders Professional Organization. The PBR, you often see them around the nation and probably watch them on TV. It's an international group, basically headquartered out of Fort Worth. The largest bull riding league in the world. Hundreds of events every year in the U.S., Canada, Brazil, and Australia. More than 800 bull riders from those communities and others. It was founded back in 1992. Now, keep in mind, bull riding has been around for a long time. They founded the PBR in 1992, and the goal was to find the meanest, toughest bulls you could. When a rider is on a bull, the rider is ranked on his riding skill or her skill. I don't know any female bull riders that have made any crack in any records, but also the bull's performance. If you happen to draw a weak bull and you have a great ride, so what? You were expected to ride that bull for 8 seconds. 8 seconds. Start counting. 1, 2, 3, 4. You're off. 8 seconds is a long time when you're on the back of a bull that does not want you on its back. Now, many of my years, I spent some time in East Texas where my grandfather lived, and every weekend we would go to local circuit, county-type events, rodeos that would feature bull riding. I was not allowed at that point because of my age to do any bull riding. I was only allowed to goat rope. Well, I was already roping cattle in the thickets of East Texas at the age of 12 and yanking them out. And the only other thing I could enter in was barrel racing. But my horse was a cow horse. It was not meant to do barrel racing, and the girls beat me every time. So one year I told my granddad, I'm going to be a bull rider. He said, well, you can't do that, son. You got to be 12 years old. I said, Granddad, I just had a birthday. He said 14, I think 14 at that point. I said, well, I just had a birthday. He said, I know you did, but you're only 12. But at that time, nobody checked. There was no photo ID. There was no ID whatsoever. If I signed up, said I was old enough and ready, they put me on. And, yeah, I had some concern and fear in the beginning, but I thought, this is something I want to do. I want to try. And that first ride, I barely got out of the gate. And that was my biggest concern, to fall down inside the gate with the bull still in the gate. That I did not want to do. And you hold on the best you can, and not very pretty ride, I'm sure, if there's any video available, and to my knowledge there certainly isn't. But I started doing it, and I never really got seriously hurt, in my opinion. I have some back issues that came up later as I got older, but didn't keep me out of the Marines. I got stepped on several times. I've got a mark still on my inside of my left ankle where the bull split the boot right at the seam. Again, I was shaken up a little bit and sore for some days, but no broken bones, no serious injury, although I had often a bull hoof come past my face, throwing dirt into it. And today's bull riders, many of them wear caged helmets, which I think is a good idea, quite honestly. It's not like the days where you want to wear a cowboy hat and just go out there and whoop it up. I mean, you got to consider what you're dealing with. And the professional bull riders, they're dealing with some of the worst bulls raised, and they're particularly pointed into there. They want a high-ranked bull so they can get a high score if they can stay on board. Once again, some of the action from a PBR event.
He needs 90.3. Koopy gets 90.15.
So close, but you know what? This is a big, big ride for Felipe Furlan on one of the best bulls in the world.
I just looked at my sheets. He's now 3 for 3 in championship rounds.
Yeah, he loves the big stage.
Coming back from a major injury of his own. Remember, he dislocated and tore all the ligaments in his left elbow during teams. He'll be smiling for a long time.
A long time if you could get a ride down from any bull, but particularly if it was a high-ranked bull. Now, bull riding has been around as long as a man decides, I'm going to get on that thing, see what happens. Well, you find out pretty quick. And if you can hold on in 8 seconds. And when I was riding, the guys timing were using a stopwatch. If they were half a second late pushing that stopwatch, I didn't get credit even if I did make 8 seconds, because I only made 7.5 by their stopwatch. Nowadays, it's more accurate, but it's still got to be 8 seconds. We have had a lot of bull riders out of Texas, obviously, and obviously there's been some all over the nation. One of them, James Monty, was the top consistent in the PBR for several years during the PBR World Championship, known for choosing the most difficult bulls. He said, if you want to be the best, you got to ride the best. He was often later nicknamed the Dragon Slayer because he was able to control some of the biggest bulls out there. Why did I continue doing it? Well, quite honestly, as I got into my early teens and even mid-teens, the girls liked it. The girls loved bull riding. I thought that's why I'm doing it. Stupid. I know it's stupid. But I was not stupid enough to do bareback bronco, because that is a whiplash that I think would have snapped my head off. If you watch the bronco riders of today, When they start out of the chute, their feet are stretched straight out to the horse's neck, and they're basically laying on the back of the horse trying to hang on, and there's some violent whiplashing. A bull cannot do that kind of movement. But there is a key tell to maybe what a bull is going to do, which brings me to the fact that I can't ride a mechanical bull. And in fact, if they know that I have been a bull rider at one time, and I would not do it now, honestly, but there's a reason that riding a mechanical bull is different than a real bull. I'll explain that. But also, the bull that made history, Bushwhacker. There have been several, but Bushwhacker in particular. So, yes, there is more to the story behind the story.
You are listening to Larry Connors, USA.
Do you know why I endorse Cafe Napoli, all the locations? Visit any of them, and you will quickly appreciate the quality of food, service, atmosphere. So maybe I'll see you at Cafe Napoli in Clayton, Napoli Kirkwood, Napoli 2 in Town and Country, Napoli 3 in St. Charles, right next door to Napoli C. Or maybe you'll find me at Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in the Chesterfield Valley. Now you know why I endorse Napoli, NapoliSTL.com.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Now, the end of the story behind the story.
This is the world's most famous bull.
He's in front of the Dow gang.
Bushwhacker, the world champion bucking bull.
Want to see how big he is?
He's been in the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal.
The biggest athlete in our sport is not a rider, it's a bull, and his name's a Bushwhacker.
He is our Derek Jeter, Michael Jordan, 5, 4, Muhammad Ali, and John Elway all rolled into one.
There's not a bull that can't be rode, and there's not a cowboy that can't be thrown.
Mark gates are closed.
Stand by Bushwhacker.
Stage left is closed.
Bang, bang, bang. Pyro. Go, go, go.
Bushwhacker's next. This year, it has been all Bushwhacker.
God's creature. That's spectacular.
Here we go in 10, 9.
That ain't no 4-H project you're getting on. It's a real deal.
It's as big and as scary and as rank as they come.
Let him out. Open the gate.
Well, that's my shot. But you don't ever see him have a bad day.
8, 7.
That's a great, great animal that's going to be remembered for a long, long time.
Bushwhacker tough. Ready to lose it. Lose it. Ready to solve 6. This all 6.
This is like Michael Jordan shooting his final shot.
We've come to a memorable moment in the history of the PBR. A journey that began on the Built Ford Tough Series in September 2009 comes to a conclusion today.
18,000 people in here that came to see this moment. Look at the crowd. Look at the crowd.
Bushwhacker's story doesn't end here, but his professional career does. The final out for the legend.
He rides. It's unbelievable.
People are going to remember where they are at this moment.
Bushwhacker was born June 1, 2006. Passed away July 2, 2024, while on a stud farm, basically. Now, many say the real bull capability comes from the cow, not the breed of the bull that's mated with her. And those who rode Bushwhacker said he could be really calm inside the gate. Didn't mind you getting on back, but the moment you nodded your head and you checked for that gate to be open, it was war. He had a PBR record streak of 42 consecutive buck-offs, 46 buck-offs in all levels of competition. August 2013, J.B. Mauney finally successful in riding him after 9 previous tries. So anytime you had Bushwhacker to ride, if you could stay on, you were going to score high points. But as you heard, August 2013, his 42 buck-off streak was broken. That was in Tulsa, Oklahoma. He scored 46.75 on that ride, would not be ridden again. He ended up being the 8th in all-time buck-offs to date. And again, Bushwhacker was awarded the PBR Brand of Honor. Again, referred to, as you heard, the Michael Jordan of bulls. Reading a couple of quotes from those who rode them, one of them being, I believe this is Chris Shivers, saying, talking about Bushwhacker, he's as important to the sport as any of the riders. Correct this. This is Lambert. Josh Lambert, I believe it is. Saying he was important to the sport as any of the riders we've ever had and more famous than most of them. Then J.R. Money spoke of his longtime rival, said, I hung on to him long enough for them to say I made the whistle. But in my eyes, he is the greatest bucking bull there ever will be. Said people will raise bulls their entire life and never have a bull like Bushwhacker. Bushwhacker weighing 1,800 pounds. And they said what he had was kind of a well-defined bovine six-pack of rigging muscles along his sides. He was built to throw you, and just not throw you, he threw you high when you came off. Just the fall itself could hurt you, even if he didn't step on you. And, of course, you had what were at one time called rodeo clowns, now called bullfighters, that rush in to try to distract the bull and get them away from the rider, especially if he's on the ground and hurt. And, of course, the worst thing to do is get caught up in it. You cannot do this story about bull riding without pointing out Missouri has a rich professional highlighting of riders from the Missouri Thunder PBR team, Luke Snyder and Mason Lowe. Now, what's the difference between riding that and a mechanical bull? Because when I would go to ride a mechanical bull somewhere, somebody'd say, come on, get on. I know they told the director, the guy running the machine, you saw it, it got popularized during Urban Cowboy, and he would make that machine do things a real bull could not do in that reaction time. Up, left, right, F, and down. A bull cannot do all of that. They can do some of it. And the thing about it, the other part about riding the machine versus the bull, you try to gauge where the bull is going to go and what's going to happen next by watching the head. Since there's no head on that mechanical machine, there was no way to gauge anything. So I would often get thrown off, and everybody would have a great time laughing at me. Oh, you were a bull rider, so. And then they'd put a beautiful young lady on and let her have a nice, slow ride, and everybody would cheer. Now, this is the difference between riding a real bull and a mechanical bull. And I never rode a PBR-rated bull. But again, as I said, you get on the back of a bull, he wants you off. He does not know he's not in the PBR. He just wants you off. So the days of bull riding, something to look back on. And I'm telling my grandsons, I'm not so sure I want you playing football. And they'd say, didn't you ride bulls at the same age we're trying to play football? Okay. I'm not very good example, am I? The story behind the story for tomorrow. Apollo 11 splashes down, safely returning the first men to walk on the moon. And before the next hour is over, Joe Rogan says one of his guests went out and cut off a person's head. Remember our pledge, one nation under God.
You can hear podcasts of this program at Larry Connors USA Facebook. Larry Connors USA Facebook.
John Bill Roofing reminds you we are in the stormy season, and that means if you have even the smallest leak in your roof, you could soon have a much bigger issue. Call the John Bill to make sure that your biggest investment is protected. That call can save you major dollars. If you do get hit during a storm, John Bill has a rapid response team. Call 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF, John Bill. There's only one place you can get pizza cooked over coals. Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in Chesterfield Valley. Of course, Napoli Brothers has a great selection of pasta dishes. Between the pizza and pasta, trust me, you will not leave hungry. Then, a few doors down, Lit Cigar Lounge, a wide variety of quality cigars, each offering a unique smoke. That cigar, some premium whiskey, all you need to do is enjoy. Lit Cigar Lounge and Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta, Chesterfield Valley. It's that time of season when families, businesses are moving. For local or long distance, I endorse McGuire Moving. Get a date set soon before the schedules are booked. 314-241-0600. 241-0600. McGuire is constantly giving back to our veterans, such as support dogs for our brave. So with McGuire, you're getting excellent service and helping our vets. McGuireMoving.com. So many times, Vincent's Jewelers has helped me surprise someone special. Vincent's locally owned can do the same for you, and you don't have to break the bank to get something really nice, maybe even customized. The smile you're going to get back from that special someone, priceless. Check VincentsJewelers.com every day because new items are arriving and there are special deals. Vincent's, my only jeweler. VincentsJewelers.com. VincentsJewelers.com. Let's be candid, honest. No out-of-state law firm can represent you better than Onder Law. O-N-D-E-R. Hometown roots, attorneys living right here with you and your family. When you suffer an injury because someone else was negligent, Onder Law will make sure the other party takes full responsibility. You'll get full compensation, not a backroom deal worked out with some insurance companies. And, of course, we're moving into the stormy season. And, again, when you have a legitimate claim, you should be properly compensated. Onder Law does not toy around with adjusters, investigators, lawyers trained to cheat you of what is rightfully yours. Onder Law has already recovered millions for families across Missouri and Illinois. Onder wins. Not just a catchy phrase, it's a fact. So I'll repeat it. Onder wins. OnderLaw.com. O-N-D-E-R. Onderlaw.com. Wins.
This is News Talk STL.
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
It's racist. It's just racist, racist, racist. Let me be clear about something. The people that were here are the indigenous folk. And you know who ICE been rounding up? They've been rounding up indigenous people. The people that originally came, not the colonizers, but the original people. So what this is about is whiteness. Everything that this administration has pushed has been about white supremacy. You want to sit up here and act like the crime is being perpetrated by people of color, but the statistics say otherwise. If you look at the real numbers, I know that y'all believe in propaganda and y'all don't want people to know the truth, and y'all definitely don't want them to know history, because then you gotta, again, acknowledge colonizing. But nevertheless, when you look at the numbers, you want to tell me about one-offs. And listen, as a criminal defense attorney, I have represented people of all colors. Let me tell you, anybody can commit a crime on any given day.
Well, I will agree with that from Crockett. Jasmine Crockett pushing again the race card and also calling out that crime, basically black on black crime, doesn't really exist in her world. Just it's not due to them. It's what the white man has pushed the black people into doing. They go out and kill your neighbor. I had Christopher Arps, of course, the co-host of the Tim Jones Chris Arps program that precedes us every day, on the other day, and we were talking about the black-on-black crime, how it is still prevalent. It still happens in communities on a constant basis, and it's to the dismay and the death of the black community. And yet some inside their own circles are saying, we don't want any more police in our area. The hell they don't. They do. And more black citizens, law-abiding citizens, are making sure they have a gun to protect themselves and their family, and rightly so. And where most of the crime happens is obviously in those areas, and where also it spills into like downtown St. Louis, where they come out of the communities and go to look and attack maybe indefensible targets. That's why you have the Second Amendment. Doesn't mean you have to shoot someone, but just having it and them seeing that you have it might be enough to make them go away, which is better than having to shoot and kill. But if you have to defend yourself or your family, what are you going to do? You're going to do what is necessary. I don't know anyone who could disagree with that statement. But again, you got Jasmine Crockett saying ICE is racist and everything going on is racist, and you are lied to if you think it's the blacks are responsible for all the crime. No one is saying they're responsible for all the crime. And if she's talking about history and stats, you're going to find that, yes, that does happen mostly in the black community. Now, are there issues that we can deal with that might bring it down? Yes. And are there a lot of black kids that come out of black neighborhoods that are plagued by crime, including drugs, that come out and become successful fathers and businessmen, maybe business leaders? Yes. Because we are the land of opportunity. But these race baiters constantly dangle that in front of everyone because they know it gins up more hatred. And it's a lie. She says, you don't want to deal with the facts of the real story. Yeah, we do. The problem is you don't. Welcome to hour number 2, Larry Connors USA. Here we are on July 23rd, 2026. Reminding you when we're on the air, we are broadcasting live streaming. You can watch the program. You go to NewsTalkSTL, Rumble, Facebook or Twitter, Larry Connors USA, Rumble or Facebook. Everything going up as a podcast later after we finish the program. Available at NewsTalkSTL, LarryConnorsUSA.com, Larry Connors USA Facebook. Or any Facebook, or rather any platform that has podcasts, simply search Larry Connors USA. And let me remind you again, please, use your phone. It is your radio. You simply download the free NewsTalk STL app onto your phone. Go to your app store on your phone, whatever carrier you have, go to the app store, search and find NewsTalk STL. Easy to remember, NewsTalk STL. And then download the app. It is free. And then you can listen to it whatever you want, whenever you want, wherever you are. Wherever you are. You're on the far side of the globe, you can still do it. You listen to the program that's on the air at that moment, which would right now be Larry Connors USA. Glad to have you listening one way or the other. And again, I pointed out, I do it on my phone, and I often just play it through the Bluetooth in the phone. So I've got great speakers. I don't have to put headsets on. I just use the car speakers and listen through the app, NewsTalk STL, absolutely free. And with Larry Connors USA, we're here every Monday through Friday from 6 to 8. And when we're on the air, we're bringing you news, analysis, commentary, and education. You leave each hour with more information than you have as we began. And one part of your education is already underway, and there's going to be another part in our next segment. I have a guest on board who says there is no America first with Mexico last. What's meant by that? My guest will give his opinion as we move forward. In the meantime, as we've seen recently in Congress, the Smithsonian Institution, funded and supported basically by our government to a large extent, is turned into racist white ideology in the sense of cursing whites and calling out racism, just like Jasmine Crockett did, and basically labelizing anything they consider wrong as it's white power acts in play. For instance, they make a point in their mass media kit, which the director of the Smithsonian said the other day, well, I don't know everything in it. Well, you're the director. I think you should know this. Granted, it's a 200-page document, but this is what all the institutions supposedly work off of, and that inside that basically says politeness is a sign of white superiority. Really? Because you're being polite? Oh, they're talking about if you say yes, sir, no, ma'am, yes, ma'am. It's hearkening back to the days of slavism. Well, you had to respond to the master. No, master. Yes, master. That's not at all what it is. It's being polite, respectful. And they have basically been under assault and taken over by the liberal wing And you've got a member of the Heritage Foundation who makes it very clear. He said the Smithsonian Institution is not what it was originally planned to be, and in fact has been hijacked, and we need to make changes, and they need to happen sooner than later. Heritage Foundation Senior Fellow Mike Gonzalez.
What do we do going forward? How do we resolve this? How do we fix this? Because it's clearly a problem. It's dividing our country. What's the path forward?
I'm saddened to say that you do need to clean out house at the Smithsonian. You have to replace the leadership. I don't think the 603 review process is going to fix anything. I don't think trying to reform with the present leadership is going to do anything. They're committed to the things they want to do. We only have to listen to what they say and look at the evidence of what they have produced. I think you need to work with the Board of Regents to effect this change.
Yeah, work with the Board of Regents, effect the change, and make changes because they have taken over the Institute, basically. And we know that. It's all very clear. There is no doubt whatsoever about it. And the more we allow them to fester and control the institution, then the more we're going to have to deal with what they do, what they create. You're not going to expect to have salvation overnight because we allowed it to decay slowly. It's like your house. If you're not making sure the structure is sounded all the time, and if you got cracks in the brick or the mortar falling off, shingles falling off, if you don't take some care of it, it is going to decay on you sooner than later. So Michael Gonzalez, we've often had him on before as a spokesman and his view. And again, he's with the Heritage Foundation speaking about you've got to get control of this again.
This past
And in the meantime, I'm glad you reminded me, Trump was in Georgia and talking about what he's done already for Americans.
filing season, 130,000 tipped workers right here in Georgia saved an average of more than $7,000 on their taxes, and that's because of no tax on tips. As an example, 700,000 Georgia workers saved an average of over $3,000 thanks to no tax on overtime, and 500,000 Georgia seniors paid $0 on their Social Security benefits thanks to no tax on Social Security.
Yeah, it's all good. Sounds good, doesn't it? If you're not having to pay tax on tips, great. If you're not having to pay tax on income, overtime income, great again. Now, I've been told by some of young people working, and I've got to be careful in this area. I don't want to give away the source, but basically saying their employer is taking into account that they're getting tips and not going to be taxed on it. So they're building in, the employer is building in an added, how would we phrase this, a tariff upon their employees, taking money out of their pocket that they figure they already made in tips. Well, it's not just stealing from the employee, it is stealing from the government in that sense, if they're handling it that way. I don't have all the details. It's just I've heard enough about it. We do know that another thing that Trump had introduced, which is getting a lot of positive reaction, and that is the Trump accounts that you can set up. One father stepped forward in the Georgia rally yesterday talking about how important this is for his child and other children.
Thank you, Mr. President, and the White House staff for allowing my family to be a part of this special event. It is truly an honor. Thank you, Mr. President, and your administration for the hard work and commitment that that made the Trump account possible. As a father, it's encouraging to know that our children's future can begin with an investment from day one. To every eligible new parent, I encourage you to take advantage of this opportunity by opening a Trump account for your child and continuing to invest in it each and every year. Mr. President, thank you for your continued commitment to investing in American families. And on behalf of my wife and me, thank you for providing our children with a greater opportunity to pursue and achieve their American dream. Thank you, and God bless America.
God bless America. USA, USA, baby. That was Cole London, correction on that, Loden, former Kennesaw State football player, Georgia's third largest university is Kennesaw State University. And he was praising Trump for what you're doing to help my family and other kids as they come up. The Trump account is a perfect starting point for them. And in the meantime, you look at where we are with some of the issues involving Trump and how it's happening and how it's playing out. Well, if you look at these issues and you look at how he's being rated, well, Trump, first of all, talking about how he did in the state of Georgia and expects to do it again.
And I'm thrilled to be back in the great state of Georgia with thousands of proud, hardworking American patriots. That's what you are. And with your help in 2024, we earned more votes than any candidate in Georgia history. There's never been anything like it. And when I say that, I have to be careful because look at all the fake news back there. They will correct me. They will say, he said he earned more. If I didn't earn, if I was 2 votes short, they would say, he's lying, he's lying. But I have to be careful. No, we weren't. We had more votes than any candidate in the history of this great state, and I'm very proud. I love Georgia. I've always loved it. And every day since, I've been fighting for the people of Georgia like no president has ever fought before, and you're doing well, too. We're going to keep it that way.
Now, there's a CNN survey pointed out by Harry Enton, and it points out how Trump is being approved across the nation, especially inside the Republican Party. Harry Enton.
Trump is still very popular with Republicans. Just take a look here. Okay, 21st century own party approval rating, about at this point in the second term. We got Trump, we got Obama, we got Bush. Look, they're all fairly popular, but the one who is the most popular, and we have seen this time in and time out, no matter when you look, is Donald John Trump. He's the only one who's over 80%. 83% of Republicans still approve of the job that Donald Trump is doing as president. He still has that magic touch. We'll see if it carries over to South Carolina, but we've seen it in primaries this year, Senate primaries, and that's because he is still a very popular man, historically popular when it comes to his own party liking and approving of the job that he's doing.
Now, again, that is a CNN survey. I'm going to give you balance here. A Fox News survey showing voters unhappy, they want major change. According to their survey, Republicans joining Democrats and independents in rating the economy negative. 4 in 10 voters want dramatic or revolutionary change. More Democrats say they are extremely motivated to vote in November than Republicans. By that number, we're talking about 68% more Democrats, 57% Republicans are more motivated. And in fact, if the election were today, according to this survey, 53% of the voters would back the Democrat candidate in their House districts. 46% would vote for the Republican. That is why the midterms are definitely so important. And one of those looking at these at a 2024 presidential vote, again, reference a Fox report, Trump and former Vice President Harris within 10 points? Really? In the meantime, the polls pointing out there is disillusionment in both parties. 48% of the Democrats, 41% of Republicans say they feel betrayed by their party. Where do you stand? Keep in mind, there is now voting open, early voting in the state of Missouri. The actual vote date is August 4, but you can vote early now. Check with your voting precinct. And if you need to cast a vote early because you might be out of Missouri on August 4, or it might not work for your schedule, do it now. Make sure you vote. Do not fail to vote and then start complaining. I don't want to hear that clap. Coming up, can America be great with Mexico last? What does that mean? My guest will explain. Lock and load. Ready on the right.
You are listening to Larry Connors, USA.
Spring weather has everyone sneezing, even inside their home or building. Instead of saying Gesundheit, call Wellington Environmental to perform air tests to determine if mold levels are too high. Gesundheit is the same as saying bless you after someone sneezes, the German word meaning wishing you good health. Wellington Environmental can perform air testing that is simple, fast, and can identify issues keeping you from having good health. Wellington does the same for hospitals and nursing homes for indoor concerns. Give them a call. It's simple. 314-644-4930. 644-4930. Tell Cindy, I need air sampling. They've seen it all. They can help you. Next time you hear Gesundheit, think Wellington. Wellington Environmental. Be well with Wellington. McGuire Moving is silver certified, which means they are great at relocating senior citizens. In fact, McGuire is a household name because McGuire understands the stress involved when moving older adults. So if you or family members need help moving, I highly recommend McGuire Moving. 314-241-0600. 241-0600. Get a free in-home estimate. McGuireMoving.com. John Bill Roofing reminds you we are in the stormy season, and that means if you have even the smallest leak in your roof, you could soon have a much bigger issue. Call the John Bill to make sure that your biggest investment is protected. That call can save you major dollars. If you do get hit during a storm, John Bill has a rapid response team. Call 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF, John Bill. So many times, Vincent's Jewelers has helped me surprise someone special. Vincent's locally owned can do the same for you, and you don't have to break the bank to get something really nice, maybe even customized. The smile you're going to get back from that special someone, priceless. Check Vincent'sJewelers.com every day because new items are arriving and there are special deals. Vincent's, my only jeweler. Vincent'sJewelers.com. Vincent'sJewelers.com.
This is News Talk STL.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
We often hear, obviously, Trump say we want to make America great again, MAGA. Well, my guest is head of the National Food and Commerce Union, Alejandro Martinez, and he says, America first. How are you going to do that? There is no America first with a Mexico last. Alejandro, glad to have you on board with us. Let's pick up on that.
Hello, thank you very much for having me.
You bet.
Thank you very much for having me.
You bet. Well, let's begin with that statement when you say there is no America first with a Mexican last or Mexico last. Explain, please.
Of course, we have been seeing for decades the illusion that Mexican cheap labor in Mexico and in America would strengthen our economies, made life cheaper and more affordable for Mexicans and Americans, and just exactly the opposite happened. Forgetting the Mexican working class and letting them earn poverty wages took away from America a lot of American well-paid jobs, relocated a lot of American companies to Mexico and other Asian countries, and impoverished our working class in both our countries. We have lived that already. We don't need to repeat that formula. I think that a strong supply chain means Mexican workers earning good wages in Mexico. So our field workers, our hotel, restaurant workers can come back to a life with dignity, and American workers can keep their jobs well paid because there is no migrants cheapening your labor on the fields or on your dairy industry or your grain industry, and Americans can get back to work because you have 120 million Americans not working right now and 40 million on food stamps. And I think we could work on that together to have the most powerful economic bloc the world has ever seen.
Now, inside your statement, there is the argument that many say, well, Americans won't do the cheap labor that the Mexican workers and imported workers will do. But the other side of the argument is if you pay them better wages, yes, Americans will do it. And if you raise the rates and pay wages in Mexico, then they won't come across the border to do that. Is that essentially what you're reinforcing?
Exactly. We think the root cause of all our evils, national security, border crossing, illegal migration, fentanyl, gasoline trafficking, children trafficking, migrant trafficking in Mexico has the same root cause, and that's poverty wages. When Mexicans have a good job, a well-paying job, they don't want to cross the border and risk their lives. They don't want to join the cartels knowing they can be killed any day. And we have to work on that together. And that helps American also to have better wages, to go back to the farms. Farming is a great job to have. And America was a farmer's country for centuries.
Yeah. And then you have your own border issues at your southern border, those trying to come up through Central America, the triangle, trying to migrate into your country because you're still paying, even though you're depressed wages, you're paying more than what they're getting in their areas.
Exactly. We suffered 4 years of the Biden administration opening the border on the north. That cost millions of migrants from South and Central America to walk through Mexico, many of them staying here. At least 4 of each 10 migrants stood in Mexico, fest, and now they're cheapening our labor too. They are joining the cartels too. So we have the same issues as you guys. We just don't have the political will and the money.
Well, what about the USMCA?
That was with a migration policy.
I'm sorry, I thought you cut out, and I apologize for stepping on you. But what about the USMCA? It supposedly was going to join U.S., Mexico, and Canada, and between the three of us, we'd make North America great again. Not just America, but North America.
That's our slogan. I think the next step is make North America great again. Mexico and the U.S. are the biggest trade partners in the world. We are the solution to your China problems. We share values. We share Christian foundation. We share family values, which is more important than ever. And we share a common enemy. And I think if the communists are coming after us, we have to join forces and go forward with our trade deal.
Well, you led me right into my next statement. You must be looking over my shoulder, and that is the China challenge that we're facing and you are also facing.
Yes, China has been trying to use Mexico as a backdoor for a lot of years. Mexico already imposed 50% tariffs on Chinese goods and other Asian countries. So we have already moved towards the solution that is a joint venture with you guys towards the future and not with China. Now we have to work together on the West because China is getting stronger, as you have seen, and is trying any measures to become even stronger in the future. And I think the U.S. and Mexico can combat this together.
Now, on that point, if we're going to combat it together, we also have the issue that, as you point out, and you're concerned about, there is no fair trade on poverty wages.
Right.
Explain, please.
Yeah, that's exactly right. If President Trump is worried or James O'Greer is worried about dumping or unfair trade, we will never get there if we get 3 times less or 5 times less money than you guys for the same job on the same company. We have to make sure through your unions, through the USMCA, through your pressure, of course, to push Mexico to raise wages to at least your federal minimum and enforce the Chapter 23A to end fake unionism once and for all. We are brothers of the same struggles, the American workers and the Mexican workers, and this is the way to go forward to strengthen both working classes.
All right, let's get a handle on exactly what the National Food and Commerce Union, it is Mexico's leading union dedicated to protecting workers in the commerce food sectors. You are Mexican, correct?
Yes, I'm Mexican.
And you reside there, and that is your country.
Of course, we're in Mexico City right now.
Right. So how does that stack up with trying to get your word across to the unions here in the U.S., the United Food and Commercial Workers International? How do you work with them? They got about 1.2 million men and women. Where do you stand in your numbers and your relationship?
Of course, we are representing workers in leading global companies like PepsiCo, Hershey, Mars, Mondelez, Bimbo, to name just a few of them. We share a lot of employers with the Teamsters, for example. We have had very productive talks with them. We have had our massive voting 3 months ago. 200 workplaces voted 99.6% in favor with an 85% turnout. So we have a very, very big muscle over here. And we're thinking about a joint verification alliance between unions and other institutions. So we make sure that the chapters, the labor chapters in the USMCA are enforced. So that's it. We have been doing this for 106 years, so we know our deal.
So are you actually achieving things, or are we still just looking at pie in the sky?
Well, at least all these matters have been discussed with Ways and Means, with DOL, with President Trump's administration. And I know in the review, they have been debating these issues of regional baseline, or of course, in the automotive industry, mainly of fake unionism, protecting real grassroots movements. So yeah, for sure, we have been moving the needle in that direction towards stronger jobs in America and in Mexico.
And again, back to the issue that we all have a common enemy, and that would be China. And China would love nothing better than to have a strong foothold in Mexico.
Of course.
We
just closed the door with 50% tariffs. Imagine the hit that China took. They will try. They know they're nearshoring of their companies. They get subsidized from the government. They don't care about losing money. They just want to be here. And you know that means also national security issues, spying, stealing private intellectual property. And I think our government has made a strong statement with these tariffs. And they have said to the American government they want to move forward with America and not with the communists.
Are they doing as much as they can, or should be doing reference to cartels?
We should do much more. Of course, it's not enough. The Mexican working class and Mexicans are trapped in not just a poverty trap, it's just an insecurity trap. You cannot have the field workers in Mexico free working their fields. You have cartels everywhere with a gun on their heads. You all are paying for the cartels when you buy berries, when you buy avocado. You're paying tariffs and taxes to the cartels because they take money from the working class on every field. So we have to work on this together harder.
I'm glad you pointed that out, because that's something I wanted to, before we wrap up the conversation, talk about the farm workers and the work you're doing in Mexico and products coming into the USA on the trade agreements and everything.
Yeah.
Often we have cartel attachments to it. Of
course. I think what I talked last week with DOL was we have to give teeth to the trade deal. We have to give enough budget and credibility, because they know all the parts in Mexico where the cartels are governing the fields, and all the products that are coming to you guys with cartel taxing on top of them, and they are not doing really anything about it. So I hope with this review, this is going to change, and our people in both countries are going to live freely, have cheaper goods with better wages and stronger jobs in America and in Mexico too.
And your final line is: a stronger Mexico doesn't have to come at the expense of American workers.
That's the uncomfortable truth. When Mexican workers do well, American workers do better.
All right. I want to thank you very much, Alejandro Martinez, head of the National Food and Commerce Union in Mexico. Thank you, sir, very much. Coming up, Trump dealing with those who say we're not going to win, we never should have got into the Iran war. What is your thought? And also, Joe Rogan has a guest, he says, later went out and cut off someone's head. Still to come.
You can connect with Larry on Twitter at Larry Connors USA.
When insurance companies know you're represented by Onder Law, they know Onder is not going to let you be pushed around. Their reputation is built on years of courtroom battles. If you suffer an injury or damage to your property, serve the insurance company notice. You have Onder Law on your side, a St. Louis firm you can trust to protect you at every term. Don't settle for less. You want to win? Believe me, Under wins. Under, O-N-D-E-R, underlaw.com. McGuire Moving is silver certified, which means they are great at relocating senior citizens. In fact, McGuire is a household name because McGuire understands the stress involved when moving older adults. So if you or family members need help moving, I highly recommend McGuire Moving. 314-241-0600. 241-0600. Get a free in-home estimate. McGuireMoving.com. When I have business clients or guests from out of town, I often take them to Cafe Napoli. I know they're going to enjoy any of the Napoli locations. Cafe Napoli in Clayton, Napoli 2 in Town and Country, Napoli 3 in St. Charles, next to Napoli C, Napoli Kirkwood, or Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in the Chesterfield Valley. Excellent food and intellectual conversation, if they bring the intellectual conversation. And NapoliSTL.com. NapoliSTL.com. You should know that when I endorse Wellington Environmental, it's because I believe and know they will do you right. Wellington takes pride in providing homeowners and businesses whatever they need. You need some dustless blasting? They will take care of that. You need some mold remediation? They can do that. They take pride in training their team to perform multiple services and having the equipment ready to get jobs finished. That's important to you. You make just one call, and you call a company that's been around for more than 35 years with more than 45 technicians in the field. Most of you know finding good workers, then having them show up on time could be difficult. Not for Wellington Environmental. They're there at the designated time, ready to go. Check them out to see what they could do for you. Dustless blasting or anything else you need. Wellington Environmental, 314-644-4930. 314-644-4930. Be well with Wellington.
This is News Talk STL.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Now, this is what we believe what's happening here in Pickaxe, underground nuclear tunnel complex near the Natanz, as I just mentioned. And why would you be concerned about this? Well, the Israelis just this week said this might be the area where the Iranians are storing or have moved their centrifuges. And what could you do with that? You could use those centrifuges to rebuild your nuclear program, and that is the worry. Why it's difficult to hit? That's a mountain. It's about 5,000 feet high and about 300 to 450 feet underground is where the centrifuges may be located. So what do? Do you hit it? And if so, can you be successful? This is tough mountain built of granite.
That is a Fox report on Trump dealing with Pickaxe Mountain. And Trump has indicated that he might certainly consider doing that. Has already said we will if we need to. And, of course, there is a concern about, well, can you actually get to it and be effective using attacks from the air? Brian Book is a former U.S. representative to Iran in talking about where we stand now in dealing with Iran on any kind of talks and our escalation.
I think the president does have to hit Pickaxe Mountain because Iran has learned over the earlier strikes on the nuclear facilities that anything above ground is at risk of being destroyed. And so Iran has always been thinking many steps ahead about putting a nuclear facility so deep that that no bombs could penetrate it. But that doesn't mean that you have to get to the very bottom to neuter this facility. There's a lot of stuff above ground that you can hit and still accomplish your objective of denying Iran the ability to put its nuclear facility underground.
And in the meantime, we've got another chokehold, I should say, being exercised by the Houthi rebels at Yemen, trying to shut down ships that made it through the Strait of Hormuz, and then moving down through the Red Sea, going into the Gulf of Eden. Houthi rebels have been striking back, hitting Saudi oil tankers in the Red Sea earlier today, while we were carrying out last night a 12th straight night of strikes against Iran infrastructure, military and civil. And Trump had made it very clear, every time you fire upon a merchant ship, and certainly our U.S. Navy, we're going to respond, and we're going to go after your infrastructure, your bridges, your power supply plants. This is going to cripple Iran more, but the people that are going to be hurt, obviously, are the Iranian citizens who really don't want to be in any of this, would like to go back to 1979 when they were considered the most Western nation, aside from Israel, in the Middle East, until the Ayatollahs took over. So the shooting continues, and the reports are that because of now the escalation going past the Strait of Hormuz, now hitting ships as they leave or enter the Gulf of Aden, going up the Red Sea to the Suez Canal, oil topping $100. That, of course, is going to catch a lot of attention from those who are trying to defeat Trump in the midterms and candidates he would endorse. And today we saw more of that coming to the floor. The House today passing a Democrat-backed War Powers resolution aimed at limiting Trump's military actions in Iran, 214 to 208 on this bill sponsored by Congresswoman Yahya. I said, Bill, it's really a resolution. It's not binding at this point. It's a vote of conscience. And four Republicans joined in supporting the measure. Congressmen Barrett of Michigan, Davidson of Ohio, Massey, Kentucky, Fitzpatrick of Pennsylvania. That's in the House. And in the meantime, Senate Republicans growing increasingly concerned about what they say there is no clear plan to end the military conflict. Well, that's just exactly what those who want to see us walk away from Iran and just retreat in full want. And they're going to push that. They're calling this a never-ending war. They're calling it a quagmire. I don't see that it's a never-ending war. I don't call it a quagmire. And especially if we don't have boots on the ground, which I stand opposed to. If we have to have boots on the ground to go after the target inside Pickaxe Mountain, the Gulf allies should be doing that. But then again, how much strength are we getting from the Gulf allies, and are they, in turn, getting a little nervous? Brian Book again, former U.S. representative to Iran.
Right. You have a lot of Gulf countries that are very nervous about Iran counterattacking and taking out energy facilities all across the Gulf. And if that were to happen, you could see a very sharp elevation in energy prices and in gas prices. And so I think you have a lot of very nervous Gulf allies about Iran striking back. They've already shown a willingness and a capability to hit energy facilities around the Gulf, but they've held back a lot. And so I think our allies are very nervous, and that's why they're trying to negotiate some sort of diplomatic path. You heard Secretary Rubio talk about the door to diplomacy is open, and that's exactly the right position, while the president answers every Iranian military provocation with the response on our side. I think the long-term path is a dual strategy of answering Iran militarily while running the economic blockade, the naval blockade that he's doing. The Iranian economy is very fragile. And the president was right to start the maximum economic pressure campaign in his first administration. He's got 2.5 years left to let this run. And I think because Iran is this very fragile Marxist economy, that's its biggest vulnerability. That's its weakness. And you have to focus on that while you're also answering them militarily when they hit ships and hit it.
And again, with the midterms, the pressure is on because oil prices, if they're going to be going up, they are up globally as a result as the supply lines tighten. Oil prices now at a 6-week high. It takes a while for it to get to your pump, but it hits it sooner at the pump than it comes down from the pump. You know that. A couple of months ago, a professor at Chicago University, Robert Papp, who's often been involved with presidential decisions in the Middle East and at least offering his advice and his direction, suggested that America had made the bad mistake of getting into this. You could call that a contrarian view. Some would say, no, that's actually a realistic view. And if our Gulf allies are needed, will they be there? Robert Papp on his latest view.
Iran is stronger today than it was before the war started. And this is literally the nightmare scenario that we've been worrying about. And the reason you're having me here is because in the next few months, the world economic crisis is going to grow.
And it does appear that you've been largely correct about what you said would happen.
It's because I've been modeling the bombing of Iran 20 years, and I've advised every White House from 2001 to 2024 on different issues related to conflict. And right now, we're coming into the stage 3 prediction. We're like on the Titanic, and we're about to hit the iceberg. And when the iceberg hits, there's not enough lifeboats for everybody. So we are knocking on the door of the world literally running out of oil. And then on top of that, Stephen, we have another set of problems. For example, Iran is attacking our base in Jordan, and we're in our 9th day of bombing in a row. And the scale of eliminating the drone and missile threat is much bigger than people realize because they hide those drones everywhere.
So how real is the risk that the U.S. will do some kind of limited ground operation with boots on the ground in Iran?
It's bordering on 70% now, probably by the end of this week. But I'm concerned about terrorist attack because controlling pieces of homeland territory is the biggest risk factor for suicide terrorism. So the choice is, do we have a global economic crisis, possibly recession, possibly worse, or do we let Iran control the Strait of Hormuz?
Again, that's Robert Papp, a University of Chicago professor. Some of the points he made, I would agree with. Not all of them. What do you think? And I'm not dismissing him, and you shouldn't either. Some of the points he makes are worth considering. Certainly when it comes to inside our own borders. Well, we have the issue inside our borders because Joe Biden had open border policy. Thank you, Joe Biden. And then we were telling you yesterday that there are reports from a former CIA agent that terrorists are planning numerous attacks in the near future involving planes and not just trying to take control and fly it into some target, but exploding in air. If that starts happening, it's going to create obviously a major crisis. But are we doing enough then to make sure we're protecting passengers on planes? And we talk about the drones, and they're not just there in Iran, but Cuba, 300 plus supplied by China and Russia. And they can strike Florida and beyond. And they can also hit cruise ships in the area if they choose. And Secretary of State Rubio is now being quoted as saying, we're not just looking at an eye for an eye, we're looking at a head for an eye if they're going to continue to hit us. President Trump today did once again talk about this deal with Saudi Arabia, which I've been not denouncing, but raising some issues with in my commentary today. It runs around 7:30, around 12:10, and then again around just before 4 o'clock. If you miss it, you can always catch it. But focusing on the Saudi 123 deal, which would give Saudi, the government, an opportunity to enrich uranium, not to weapons grade. But this is exactly what Iran and why we're there. They say we just want it for civilian purposes, but we know they have a sinister plot in mind. Saudi Arabia has been our friend for 90 plus years. But as I pointed out in the commentary, 90 years in that part of the world is equivalent to 90 seconds. They're talking about generations upon generations. And your friend today could well be your enemy tomorrow. We've got to keep that in mind. But the president today saying, we're going to go ahead and work with them on their nuclear facilities, but they must first sign off. There will be no deal, and it will only be for non-military use anyway, but it is not going to happen unless the Saudis join the Abraham Accords, which it started to do before the Iran war began to break out, because that's really what incited Iran to get its proxies to gin up war and military action across the Gulf. and they're doing it. Coming up, I had mentioned Joe Rogan had a guest on who's now been charged with beheading someone. I'll have that story. And also Trump talking about the radical left.
But while our administration is lifting up the next generation with the power of freedom and American capitalism, proven all over the world when it's done right, it's not always done right, but when it's done right, there's nothing like it. The radical left is actively trying to destroy our children's future with the disaster known as communism. It's communism. This isn't a social democrat. These are communists by another name, right? America is back. It's stronger than ever before. And I'm telling you, it's only going one way. It's going up. As long as we keep our current thinking, our current system, it's going up. If you go the other way, nothing ever succeeds. I made the statement once, with communism, everything turns to shit, okay? It's true. Terrible thing. It's true. My wife hates it when I do that. She said, you were doing so nicely, and then you had to use a foul word.
He was addressing a crowd in Georgia yesterday. Or as I mentioned, Joe Rogan, a guest he had on his podcast. During yesterday's episode, he was recalling a 2024 interview with Sheldon Johnson while discussing sociopaths. Now, Johnson was an ex-con who portrayed himself as a reformed criminal justice advocate. And Rogan, in quoting him from his program, we had a guy in the studio that cut a guy's head off after the podcast. He killed a guy and cut his head off. He does the podcast and then afterward goes and visits this guy that he apparently had a beef with, kills him, cuts his head off, puts him in a suitcase, like puts a wig on, then tries to escape in the hallway through the cameras. Johnson is an ex-con, again, who had claimed he was a reformed criminal justice advocate. And according to Rogan, he's now charged, and he is, with not only killing this enemy of his in his New York City apartment, dismembering his body, stashing the remains in multiple locations, and part of that involved cutting the guy's head off. And Joe Rogan said he sat right here in the studio talking about he wanted to be an advocate for the public defender's office in Queens. According to New York Post, the man could be heard begging for mercy before gunshots were fired. And then the guy charged with the murder was seen in different disguises going in and out of the apartment. Both of the guys had served time in prison. The relationship of their relationship is still kind of unclear, but the bottom line is that Rogan's guest is now charged with not just killing the guy, but cutting his head off and then dismembering him. Yeah, he was saying, I'm reformed, and I'm advocating for criminal justice. Well, you might not want to be advertising and advocating for criminal justice for yourself going forward at this point. Mercy, maybe. Please make sure you join us again tomorrow. Remember our pledge, one nation.